What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I've got another very important AMC update to bring all of you this evening. So what we're going to be talking about in this update video is we have to go over those short interest and utilization numbers on Ortex to get a bare baseline understanding of what the updates were today on Ortex. Now, in addition to this, we also have to talk about the gamma squeeze potential on AMC. If you guys were around for the morning stream earlier today, we kind of talked about what I'm expecting to see on how we're going to set off this next big price movement to the upside. Now, we saw essentially what happened back in late August, early September on how we ended up going from $30 a share to $52 a share, and we really only had one super significant green day to the upside. I think over the next couple of weeks, if we start to see those green days start to pop off, well, we have a pretty nasty option chain setting up for us to really send us to the upside. Now, we also have this kind of issue coming up with the LIBOR, the London Interbank offered rate, and how that is going to be done away with. Now, this rate is very easily manipulated, and it's also the rate that a lot of these derivatives use to kind of base what their values are. So it's a way for a lot of these banking institutions to artificially make a bunch of money on these over-leveraged derivatives positions, but that is going away starting Monday. I also want to briefly cover the situation with AMC in Saudi Arabia with a lot of their new theaters. So before we get into all of that information, if you enjoyed the information and analysis that I provide for you in this video, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it really helps us out a whole lot in getting this information out to as many people who want to learn. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. So AMC closed the day today up about 99 cents, 3.54%. Very, very solid green day today. Now, we did end up crossing above that $30 mark, but the overall market, honestly, really sold off towards the end of the day, and AMC ended up going with it. So coming over to the Ortex numbers right here, we have utilization at 77.49%. Now, that's not necessarily enough to really put a lot of pressure on these lending institutions in terms of forced share recalls, but if we do start to see that short volume really starting to come back in and reported on the exchanges, then we are going to see these cost to borrow start to step up. We have 16.79% estimated short interest as a percentage of the free flow on AMC right now. And again, guys, when we see these numbers drop like this, it's really just the result of Ortex overestimating their short interest around the time that they previously had the settlement date for the exchange reported short interest. So there's really nothing to be all that nervous about with these changes in the estimated short interest. You have to think about what is the reality of the situation with the short interest versus what we're actually seeing on these data sources. That is kind of why we need to take a lot of this information with a grain of salt. Now, coming over to the option chain over here, we are seeing 116,000 contracts in the money for that January expiration date with this move up today, but we are also seeing the out of the money contracts start to step up as well. 467,000 contracts. This is a very significant amount of contracts, and since AMC is trading at a higher price, has a little bit more implied volatility baked into it, these contracts are going to be more expensive. So if I was a market maker right now, I would be very, very worried about the premium inflation that we are going to see when we start to see that next big price run up to the upside. And I want you guys to think of a gamma squeeze in a different way than a short squeeze. I know some of you guys might already know the difference between these two, but some of you guys may not. I want you to think of a gamma squeeze and a short squeeze like a sink in a faucet with only a certain amount of water that is going to be able to be poured into the sink. A short squeeze is going to turn on that faucet to its highest level. It is going to shoot out all of that water, and then the water is going to go into the sink and basically run away in a pretty quick fashion. With a gamma squeeze, you're just barely turning on the water, so it's slowly kind of coming out into the sink. What this really means in our situation is that as we start to see the stocks start to step up and the delta hedging happens from these market makers, we see that nice backdrop of just continuous buying pressure that is going to wipe out a lot of these sell orders and shorting that is happening on AMC, helping us move back to the upside. Now, in order to get into this situation with derivatives, the derivatives exposure, and why this LIBOR rate is so important to what we have going on in the beginning of 2022, well, we need to define a few things first. What is the LIBOR rate, the London Interbank Offered Rate? So the London Interbank Offered Rate is a benchmark interest rate at which major global banks lend to one another in the international interbank market for short-term loans. These can be overnight loans or even a little bit longer than this, but it is about to be replaced with SOFR and a couple of other different basically interest rates that they're going to be measuring starting next Monday. So SOFR is the secured overnight financing rate. And we also have to think about how big is the global derivatives market. The derivatives market is, in a word, gigantic, often estimated at over 1 quadrillion on the high end. I've showed you guys this a couple of times in the past. When we're looking at the Office of the Comptroller of the Currencies report, we can see down here we have about $183 trillion. Remember, this is in millions of exposure on the top 25 commercial banks, savings associations, and trust companies in derivatives. Now, let's get into how this is actually going to affect things going forward. When we come over to this Yahoo Finance article right here, the plumbing of the world's financial system has been replaced and almost nobody noticed. Banks and regulators around the world have managed to replace the plumbing of the entire financial system and nobody noticed. Oh, sorry for repeating that right there. Driving the news, as of Monday, LIBOR, the interest rate that once underpinned some $300 trillion in financial contracts from derivatives to corporate lines of credit, will be effectively dead. Why it matters? The easily manipulatable LIBOR was at the center of one of the biggest scandals in history of finance, which came to light back in 2012. Banks racked up some $9 billion in fines, and a number of traders received prison sentences. LIBOR has now been replaced with some much more solid and reliable benchmarks. So what we're seeing here is that this rate is very highly manipulatable. So if they're using these rates to essentially come out and say, yeah, our derivatives exposure and our derivatives positions are essentially going to be having a higher value than what they actually are, then that is a major problem in the overall market because they can use these positions as collateral for even other positions. Now, the reason why they can manipulate this rate so much is that when we look up here, because LIBOR was generated by surveying banks and just asking them what their interbank lending rates were, it is easy for the banks to lie in the direction that would make their traders the most money. Now, all of these banking institutions, they're in the business of making money. They are easily able to essentially right here push this rate up or down even by a few hundredths of a percentage point, and they could make enormous sums of money. That is kind of at the core of what we're fighting here in this fight against the way Wall Street and the market is really set up at the current time. So the fact that this London Interbank Offered Rate is kind of going away, and we're seeing some different ways to calculate these interest rates come out, is going to be a positive thing for the derivatives market. But if these institutions have artificially inflated positions based off of these interest rates, well, what is going to happen? Well, a lot of these contracts are OTC, these derivatives contracts that these institutions have. And remember, we have Phase 5 UMR, the increased margin call rule that the DTCC has released. So we could end up seeing a lot of crazy moves and a lot of these big banking institutions taking significant losses potentially in the near future. Now, I also want to talk about this situation kind of revolving around what is going on with AMC's expansion into the Middle Eastern market. When we come over here, we can see that the title of this, AMC opens new 900-seat Cineplex at this location right here. I don't really want to butcher this name. So we can see that as we come down a little bit further, AMC Entertainment Holdings aims to open 50 cinemas, offering 500 screens across the kingdom in coordination with its venture partner, Saudi Entertainment Ventures 7. Now, this is an interesting thing that AMC is doing. Technically, AMC doesn't own these theaters outright. They are essentially a partner of the Saudi Entertainment Ventures. So what they're essentially doing is licensing their name and likeness to this company in order to put up these AMC theaters in the Middle East. So what they're able to do here is kind of limit a lot of the costs of operating these theaters, but they're also able to generate revenue off of this, and they own about a 10% stake in a lot of these theaters. These theaters are going to be put up in high-performing locations, so this is a very, very bullish thing for AMC going forward fundamentally, and is a really good step in the right direction for the global expansion that Adam Aron has been talking about for some time. So that is going to wrap up this update on AMC. If you guys enjoyed the information and analysis that I provided for you in this video, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it really helps us out a whole lot in getting this information out to as many people who want to learn. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. So I hope you guys are having a great evening, and I'll see you guys in the live stream bright and early tomorrow morning at 8:30 Eastern.